You replay the conversation again, the tone of their voice, that awkward pause, the moment you should have said something smarter, calmer, better. And somehow, hours later, your brain is still stuck there. While everyone else moved on, your mind didn't. It keeps searching for hidden meanings, for mistakes, for proof that you embarrassed yourself, annoyed someone, ruined something. And the worst part? You already know it's exhausting, but you still can't stop. Because replaying conversations was never really about the conversation. It's about something much deeper. Maybe you've done this before. You leave a room and immediately start analyzing everything. Why did I say that? Did they look offended? Why did they suddenly go quiet? Should I text them again? Did I sound weird? And suddenly a 5-minute interaction becomes a 2-hour mental investigation. You try to sleep, but your mind reopens the case. You imagine alternate versions of the conversation, better responses, different endings. You become both the criminal and the detective, and most people around you never notice. Because overthinking is usually silent. The people who replay conversations the most are often the ones who look the calmest on the outside. But inside, their mind never fully relaxes. Pause for a second. Think about the last conversation you replayed over and over. Now, ask yourself this. Were you actually trying to understand the conversation? Or were you trying to protect yourself from rejection? Because those are two very different things. A lot of people think replaying conversations means you're too sensitive. But sensitivity isn't the real reason. Your brain replays conversations when it believes social mistakes are dangerous. And that belief usually starts earlier than people realize. Some people grew up in homes where moods changed quickly. One wrong sentence could start tension, disappointment, anger, silence. So they learned to monitor everything. Tone, facial expressions, tiny emotional shifts. Not because they were dramatic, because they were trying to feel safe. And eventually, their brain turned hyper-awareness into a survival habit. That habit followed them into adulthood. Now, even normal conversations feel loaded with hidden risks. A delayed reply feels personal. A short response feels cold. A change in tone feels threatening. So, the brain replays interactions trying to solve a problem before it becomes pain. But here's the trap. The more you replay conversations, the less present you become in real ones. Because part of your mind is always preparing for emotional danger. Some people don't even realize how deeply this affects them. They rehearse messages before sending them, delete texts multiple times, apologize too quickly, read expressions like puzzles. Not because they're weak, because somewhere along the way they learned that being emotionally correct kept them accepted, and accepted meant safe. But human conversations are messy. No interaction will ever be perfect. No sentence will remove the possibility of misunderstanding. Yet your brain keeps trying anyway, because deep down, replaying conversations creates an illusion of control. If I analyze it enough, maybe I can avoid getting hurt. But pain doesn't disappear just because you studied it harder. And honestly, sometimes the conversation you keep replaying barely mattered to the other person. That's the painful irony. The moment haunting you at 2 a.m. might have been forgotten by them at 2 p.m. But your nervous system didn't forget, because emotionally sensitive people don't just remember words. They remember feelings attached to words. The tension, the embarrassment, the uncertainty, especially uncertainty. Your mind hates unfinished emotional stories. That's why silence feels so loud to overthinkers. No response becomes 100 imagined responses. And imagination is rarely kind when insecurity is involved. Pause again for a moment. How much of your life has been spent trying to avoid being misunderstood? How many conversations became emotional autopsies in your head? And how often were you harder on yourself than anyone else ever was? Because maybe the real exhaustion isn't socializing. Maybe it's carrying the responsibility of constantly monitoring yourself, watching yourself, correcting yourself, editing yourself, until conversations stop feeling natural and start feeling like performances. But there's something important most overthinkers never hear. The fact that you replay conversations so deeply usually means one thing. You care. You care about hurting people. You care about connection. You care about being understood. That isn't weakness. The problem is when caring turns into self-punishment, when every interaction becomes evidence against yourself. Because eventually you stop talking freely. You start filtering every part of who you are. And slowly, people meet the edited version of you instead of the real one. Here's the realization that changes everything. Most meaningful human connection does not come from saying the perfect thing. It comes from feeling safe enough to be imperfect. That's what your brain struggles to believe. Because maybe somewhere in your past, imperfection felt dangerous. But not every silence means rejection. Not every awkward moment means failure. Not every delayed text means abandonment. Sometimes people are distracted. Sometimes conversations are clumsy. Sometimes humans are simply human. And sometimes your mind creates storms out of moments that were never meant to destroy you. Tonight, when your brain tries replaying another conversation, try noticing something. Your mind isn't actually searching for the perfect sentence. It's searching for reassurance, for safety, for acceptance, for proof that you are still worthy after being seen. And maybe healing begins the moment you stop asking, "Did I say everything perfectly?" and start asking, "Why am I so afraid of being imperfect around people?" Because that question reaches deeper than the conversation ever did. And maybe that's the real conversation your mind has been trying to have all along.